We will probably see some fights, things like that. Just kind of the all-day binging.
Okay. This sort of goes along with that big party night the night before Thanksgiving, I guess. Those are the three then, right? The New Year's Eves and the St. Patty's Day and that one.
Yep.
So it's an excuse to drink and have a good time, right? And then we end up with some of the things you've described.
Absolutely. And I know during the week, I know the last few years St. Patrick's Day has been during the weekdays, kind of helped keep it down a little bit.
Yeah.
A lot of folks still have to be to work Friday mornings, so that'll help a little bit.
What about the weekends on either end? Does you see an uptick in issues on those weekends?
Usually the weekend after is more active. Just a lot of people who didn't get to celebrate during the week kind of go ahead and take it out on the weekend.
That's when they plan it, is the weekend after, not necessarily before.
Yep. And then obviously we've got spring break coming up for a lot of the schools and things, so kind of leads into that a little bit and continues, not quite as bad, but continues for a couple of weeks.
Saw a story floating around on social media yesterday about law enforcement down in the warm zones, Florida, Texas, and places like that, trying to keep up with all the partying going on down there. I guess you could be there.
Yes. Thank God for the cold.
Yeah, right, yeah. Well, so is the drunk driving issue the main thing you focus on now?
That's the primary thing we're focusing on this year. It's still pretty prevalent. We still had a lot of fatals last year contributed to alcohol, so it's still kind of one of the forefront things in our mind.
And we'll talk about how a person green lights that in their head when we come back, and how Battle Creek Police are trying to get you to think differently about that. 8:30 Wednesday, Richard Piet Show. Officer Derek Walters is here. Battle Creek Police Department. Tomorrow, St. Patrick's Day, and for some people, the partying happens tomorrow, maybe Friday, maybe the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully not all the way through, but some maybe. And as we've just learned, the operating vehicle under the influence is the number one issue for law enforcement as this holiday comes and goes. You know, there's so much social pressure, and the viewpoint just in general has changed so much about operating while intoxicated, but it still happens, doesn't it?
Absolutely still happens. We get a lot of people who, unfortunately, especially around St. Patrick's Day, probably drink more than they're used to. You get a lot of folks who may only drink 1 or 2 beers during the week. They'll go out for that event, and next thing you know, they're 5 or 6 shots down drinking a couple of pitchers. And a lot of people, I've seen them once we've, pulled them out of their car. A lot of people just don't realize how bad they actually are. They think they're fine, don't feel anything's a problem. And then once we get them to do like a breath test or, a blood test, they come back and, they're several times the legal limit. They just don't understand that. And, that's part of the being impaired. It just impairs their judgment and pretty much everything around it.
So what do you see more often? Do people just go into that situation not having given any thought to how they're going to handle themselves later? Or do they go in expecting not to be drinking and end up drinking, and thus they've made no plans to figure it out?
I would probably venture it's close to 50-50 on that. We get I've been on several OWI stops where, the person just, went out, thought they were going to have a beer or two and, have dinner and head home. And, I've had a couple who have, been celebrating all day and, didn't plan to have a drunk driver or a designated driver with them, and then they just, okay, I got to get home. And a lot of the times that's their priority. Several people have been like, just let me go home. Just let me go home. That's their big thing.
Do they ask you for a ride?
We have had them ask us for a ride.
Yeah.
They usually do get one. It's just not to where they were thinking they were going.
Yeah, right. Ride somewhere else. Has bars and things like that, not the kind of bars they came from.
Correct.
Yeah. This is still a fairly significant problem then, or would you say over the years we've seen it scale back some?
I think it's scaled back a little bit, and it's hard to say whether that's from their end or our end, simply because, for the last several years with the economy not being as great as it was, A lot of departments weren't getting the funding for the drunk driving enforcement that we had before. The state police has kept theirs up pretty well, but we're just doing a lot more with less, and that may contribute, that may not. It's just hard to tell.
Will you have extra patrols tomorrow and into the weekend?
Yeah, that's our intention. Several of our guys, especially our night shift guys, are pretty much certified all the way around when it comes to PBTs, drunk driving tests. They know what they're doing, and most of those guys are very, very good at what they do.
Punishment is pretty stiff, isn't it?
Yes. Just a first OWI, no prior anything. You're looking at least $100, which isn't so bad, but then you're also looking at 93 days potentially behind bars. And
that's 3 months.
Yes. And if you have like a CDL or anything else, those can be worse. They actually have a lower limit that they're allowed to be at, just based on their license type. And that's kind of it. A lot of folks don't consider the long-term effects.
Well, and the other side of it too is if you have to retain a legal professional to help you sort this out, now you're talking about thousands of dollars.
Absolutely.
Maybe like tens of thousands.
Yep, potentially.
Yeah.
And that stuff stays on your record for quite a while. Most jobs require that to be a disclosure when you get hired. We've seen a lot of people come through that, they're celebrating getting the new job, and, I've talked to them, several months down the road, and they ended up losing that job based on it. So
oh, my gosh.
It's one of those things that people really need to consider before they go out and do it.
Follows you around.
Absolutely.
We're talking with Officer Derek Walters, Battle Creek Police. Back shortly to pick up on our conversation. Wow. Good morning, Richard Piet Show. Officer Derek Walters, Battle Creek Police Department is here. We're just offering you some cursory reminders about safety tomorrow and this weekend as your St. Patty's Day celebrations get started. We've been talking about the effects of operating while intoxicated. You have talked about having met folks whom you've pulled over who maybe this is the first time they've done this. Maybe it's a situation where they didn't plan appropriately and ended up driving and shouldn't have. There are probably others whom you've met who've done it before, right?
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure there's several people that I could say I've come across that just happens to be the first time they've ever gotten caught. They've done it several times, and up till that point they've been lucky. They haven't gotten pulled over. They've made it home. But that's a risk that they're taking every single time they're out there.
Sure. A huge risk.
Oh, absolutely.
What are the biggest tip-offs that indicate to you that somebody is operating while intoxicated?
A lot of them we actually do get from other people out and about driving.
They've seen it.
They've seen it. We'll get a call for a reckless driver. The biggest thing we look for that I've noticed in doing them myself is just some of the erratic driving as far as weaving in and out of their lane. The speeding up and slowing down. They'll get into a straightaway somewhere on like Columbia, and it's 35, and you come up on them and they're doing 15, and then all of a sudden they'll do 60, and then they'll slow it right back down.
Oh my goodness!
Just because their perception is altered, so they're trying to compensate for that, and they end up overcompensating.
It's really that erratic?
Oh,
15 to 60?
Oh yeah, I've seen them go crazy. I've had people who they'll pull up to a stop sign or a red light, and they'll think, okay, the light's red, I'm good to go. They'll stop, look, and keep on going.
Mix up what they're supposed to be doing.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. So yeah, somebody doing 15 or 60 or going back and forth between the two are pretty pretty stark signs.
Yeah, those are the more extremes that we've seen. We've had them from as simple as, they just don't have their lights on. Usually that's a very good one, right around the times the bar is closing. A lot of folks just want to get out, get home, and they'll get a couple blocks down the street and still not have their lights on, and It's usually a pretty good sign that something's not running right with them.
I'm amazed. I see that fairly often, people without lights on, and I always think, boy, don't we have, most cars these days turn the lights on for you, but I guess not.
Yeah, there's still some that don't. Yeah, I know one thing, especially with our patrol cars, it does mess us up because we actually have an illuminated dashboard all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're not used to it, but yeah, for the most part, it's generally they just didn't turn them on.
And you'd think of that if you were thinking straight on these things.
Correct.
Yeah. All right. So this is the main concern. Are there other concerns that you have leading into tomorrow's holiday that we should be aware of?
Just being aware of your surroundings is still the big one. We say that for just about any type of prevention that we talk about. Just be aware of where you're at. If things are getting a little rowdy, if you're out at a bar or something, these guys don't just drive bad. They like to act bad. Just want to be aware, probably, if you see guys throwing chairs, it's a good time to get out of the bar.
Now that sounds like a movie, but that really happens, huh?
It doesn't happen often, but it does happen.
Okay.
And especially, if you're not drinking and driving, you're out just having, a nice dinner, or you're just out and about doing your errands and things tomorrow. Just be aware of the drivers around you. If you've got somebody who is driving erratically or giving signs off that they may be intoxicated, give them their distance. You don't want to stay too close to them. By all means, call 911. Give us as much vehicle information as you can. Like I said, that's where we get a lot of our stops from, is just folks every day out and about.
Do people hesitate to do that? I mean, you meet people who might not believe what they're seeing and not sure that warrants a 911 call.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we get a lot of people who, even simple things, well, I didn't want to bother you guys, or I didn't want to call 911 based on, just that. I tell everybody, I would rather have you be safe than sorry. I would rather come up and stop somebody and find out, they were leaning down trying to get a CD in, or, their phone was on their, next seat and they were trying to reach for that, then find out that they were intoxicated and we didn't stop them and they end up hurting themselves or somebody else.
All right, there you have it. If you feel it's warranted, make the call.
Absolutely.
We appreciate the update. Thank you.
Nope, thank you, sir.
Officer Derek Walters, Battle Creek Police Department, 820.